Thanks. Yeah, very well. How are you?
I'm great. I just watched this wonderful film called Before Dawn. I don't know if you've heard of it, but um,
I have for the last three or so years. I've heard of it. Yep.
wow. Um, we do, here in the U.S. we don't know that much about what went on with the Australians, and it's a lovely piece, um, a coming of age story, a coming to terms story with yourself.
Mm.
It's got all those notes. So congratulations on
Thank you.
a very watchable war story.
Thanks. Yeah, it wasn't a easy production to create essentially and to bring to the silver screen. But like you say, it's there's a lot to the film. It's maybe an epic, but there's also a lot of small intricate moments, and that's what's been especially been quite a massive challenge. But yeah, we did it. Yeah, finally. So it's finally on the silver screen for the world to see.
And people should see it on a big screen, because there's something lost, I think, whenever you're watching something that's got these kind of vistas in them
Mm.
that you just maybe not pick up on a smaller screen.
Exactly. And I mean, when we filmed this, it was made for the big screen. It was made for cinema. I might be 28, but I keep getting told I was born in the wrong era because I grew up watching Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen and all the old goody sort of films, but they were always made for the silver screen, and that's what I've done with this and the team that we've got behind this. Every decision we made, we always thought, okay, if we want to get in a close up here, it wasn't, oh yeah, it's going to be on a 30-inch laptop TV screen or whatever. It's no, we're going to have the lead character's face 30, 40 meters across here. So we really want to get in close to see that emotion and push that audience into that screen.
Now you've done your share of films, but portraying a war on camera is no easy because you've got no easy task because you've got all of these elements running at the same time. As you're timing your camera shots, it's a ballet of pulling your hair out, probably.
Yeah, they've actually made a documentary on the making of this film, and that comes out July 5th. And I remember on the first day we had 120 odd kilometer gust winds, and the tent scene we were going to film that first. I think they've seen 20 something or other, and it was that windy that the set started to blow over. So it was like, well, okay. And then the scene that we did decide that we ended up reshifting things and shooting that day, it was pouring down with like torrential rain, and we were in the middle of filming and in knee deep mud, and so we're like, okay, this is going to be a hard shoot here. It's not going to be an easy shoot, but it was the fact that it was a testament to the story. We had to get this story told. So it wasn't an easy shoot, and yeah, there was a lot going on. But I remember when that documentary, the behind the scenes team came up, and the guy Ben said, "Oh, I want to make a documentary." Well, as a filmmaker, well, that's because things are going wrong. That's why they want to make a documentary. And you're going, great, we're only on day one here. But it was very much, by day 3 or 4, everyone started to bond very closely. And it's like the worst things got that it was almost, we were really laughing about it. The happier we got, we really kind of, all of the cast and crew became a very close-knit family. We all kind of started to read each other's minds, help each other out. The extras were awesome, helping each other out. And as a director, that makes, yes, the brain's going a million miles an hour, but you've always got to stay calm because you can only make good creative decisions when you're calm. And then having an amazing cast and crew, an amazing team around me, that was really helped me to kind of push through and go, okay, we're actually going to make sure we tell the story correctly here.
Tell me about working with Levi Miller and Ed Oxenbould. They're both incredible actors, and they both, I really think they understand these roles.
They do, yeah. And I actually remember chatting with Levi the early days. We were talking about, okay, well, when he's going out to the trench, I said to Levi, I don't want your typical, or sorry, I don't want your stereotypical, oh, I'm excited to go to war, because a matter of fact, because of the fact that we were basing this straight on the diaries and we had that raw material and we really wanted this film to feel raw and not have that Hollywood gloss, to feel raw as if we were reading the diaries, if the audience was reading it straight out of the diary. And I said to Levi, I was like, well, it's actually an unknown here. And he did an incredible job, almost navigating that. Okay, yeah, I'm excited, but I don't really know what I'm in for, and I'm going because of my mates want to go, and I'm coming from and yes, it's an adventure, but there's still those nerves there. So it wasn't just oh yeah, I'm excited, and then things go bad, and now I'm not. It was like, no, let's make this raw and real, because based on those diaries, and what would you be like in that, experience, Levi? And then on the contrast to that was Ed. Well, based on the diaries we were basing his characters on, well, they were very excited to go to war, but it was still at times, then it was like, oh, yeah, excited, but then we needed to show that intimate moment. Well, actually, I still don't know what's going on here, but I need to play the tough guy because of my best mate that I've dragged along with me. So being able to have performances like that were really real and authentic, that's, take my hats off to those guys. And, I'm a strong believer that as a director, half of my job is casting correctly. And this film was very much an ensemble cast with everyone that was involved. And, half of that job was done. And the other half of the job was me just pulling out that performance that I wanted from such an incredible cast. So I was a very, very lucky director.
We've seen so many other war movies that talk about this, but yours actually shows the building of brotherhood, and
Yeah.
that's something we don't normally see.
Yeah, and that was something that stood out when I read those diaries. I mean, I read the diaries back when I was 15 years old, and the events, I got to read the events from different perspectives of the men and women that were at the war in World War One, in these particular events. And one thing that stood out is how they connected so quickly, but then how it could all just crumble so quickly. There was one of the diaries still to this day that just sticks with me, and he's talking about this particular battle, and then about his best mate and how they're playing two up, and then they're going on about what they're having for breakfast and how rubbish it is, and then the next line is he mentions that his mate was shot through the chest twice. And it's like, and then you go, oh, that was sudden. And the next minute they're talking about, oh, now we're moving here and the general's doing this and that. And you go, well, hang on a minute. I've just read about your mate or whoever it is for the last 10 pages in the diary, but by one line, that's it. He's been killed in action. And now we're just talking about the rubbish food we're having or what the generals are doing next. And it just moves along. And then next minute, building brotherhood or building that mateship with somebody else. And so that was something that kind of stood out, going, okay, that it could, we did want to show how we wanted to build that up, but also how fragile it was in such a horrific war scene, essentially, with everything that was going on.
As audiences discover Before Dawn, and I hope they discover it quickly, what do you think they're going to take away from the experience of watching it?
So for me, it was always an awareness project, because when I started to speak to people about World War One, they weren't aware of not necessarily just the Australians' contribution, New Zealand's contribution, but just the Western Front in general. The only thing that they seem to have known about it is, oh yeah, there were these battles, or what they've seen in the All Quiet on the Western Front as it's been remade over the years. So I wanted to show, well, actually, there's, in a sense, yes, there's this big epic scale, but it was actually lots of little stories. And Before Dawn is a drop in the ocean compared to how many stories there are, and just the humanity behind it, but also how cruel the war was. But I mean, some of the greatest military victories of all time are still in World War One. Some of the technology that was used, the way there was like the Hindenburg line with the red, blue, and green line, the leapfrog effects that were used, all of that sort of way of that battle, I guess, in a sense, and the way they actually attacked and that sort of thing, that's still used today in military, and that was all discovered in World War One. So, that's probably like a lot of underlying things. But at the end of the day, as a filmmaker, is if the audience can walk away and they've gone on an emotional roller coaster. And at the premiere, we had people coming out of the cinema and they were in tears. And I'm going, oh no, what have I done? Something's not right here. And no, they had gone on this emotional roller coaster, and that's when I went, okay, yeah, we've done our job here. We've connected with audiences. So if audiences can walk away feeling that they felt like they're actually in that scene, if they felt like they were covered in the mud and the cold, and actually get an awareness of the sacrifices of what those men and women did back then, which have essentially worked towards us having the world that we live in today.
Yeah, it is, something we should never forget, about, and the sacrifices that these guys at a very early age. Some of them were, teenagers. Um,
Yep.
and to bring that back into our consciousness, you've done a great job with that in your score. By the way, I have to mention your score is outstanding.
Thank you. Yeah, Sean Tinian, who wrote, yeah, who was our composer. I actually remember, and this was captured as part of the documentary. I remember because you kind of give your composer like, oh, I want this sort of feel, that sort of feel, and I kind of gave him a lot of free rein in certain scenes. And when I first met him, which was before we started filming, and he sent me this little piano riff. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then we were filming, he came down to set, we did all this other stuff, and he went off, wrote all this other music, and everything was great. And then, yeah, 2 years later, when we're in his particular music suite, and he goes, okay, well, I've put this together. And I sat there and it was captured on camera how excited I was. Like I started shaking, like, this is great. And then he turned around and he goes, you do realize that out of everything I've written, I've just gone back to what I wrote at the start, that piano riff. I've just elaborated on that, what I wrote 2 years ago. And it just goes to show what connected with me back then. And, it worked well for the production.
It's a great score. I hope you release it on its own sometime.
It is, yeah. They've not long released it on like iTunes and Spotify, so it's definitely out now because, yeah, and like you said, it's a great score, and I said to him that it has to be released like that because you can. I mean, I had it playing in the car the other day, and I'm going, oh, that's right, that's part of the film that we did.
Jordon, it's a pleasure to meet you. You're in the right business. I think you need to tell more of these stories, but I bet you're ready for a comedy now.
We'll see. So we'll see. We've got two more movies lined up, which we'll be doing announcements on soon. But for me, it's if it's an incredible story and it's a story that has to be told, then I'm doing it. And I had someone the other day that said, "Oh, now that you've done Before Dawn, everything will be easy," because of the scale of what Before Dawn was. And then I gave them the script for the next one. They said, "Yep, I'm never going to say anything ever again."
It's never easy, but it's always worthwhile.
Definitely, yeah. Well, yeah, especially when you sit there and you see audiences come out and you go, "Yep, that was worthwhile." All that blows blood, sweat, and tears because of what we achieved.
Thank you so much, my friend. It's great to meet you.
Likewise, thanks very much for your time.
All right, you take care.
You too. Catch ya.
Bye bye.